For some people, it may feel like deja vu. This match only just happened as the LA Sevens final, and we get to see the rematch as a Sevens World Cup final. Fiji versus New Zealand, always a close encounter, and hopefully this one will be no different. But welcome into the channel, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to be doing our preview for the upcoming final between New Zealand and Fiji. Throughout this preview, we will be talking about previous fixtures, important key players for their upcoming fixture, and also at the end, we will give our score prediction for the Sevens World Cup final, but we will jump straight into it. First of all, we will be looking at Fiji. Now, something that both of these sides didn't have to go through was the pre-round of 16. They had already qualified, so both sides playing the 3 matches for Fiji. They started in the round of 16, and their opposition was Wales. They were able to win that game 29 points to 5, so a nice comfortable warm-up game for the Fijians as they headed into the quarterfinals, where they did end up going up against Samoa, which was never going to be an easy fixture. But the Fijians, they fought back after going down early and managed to get themselves the 21-10 win over their Pacific Island brethrens. Then we look at the semi-final. Fiji able to beat Australia comfortably, 38 points to 14. I think that win surprised quite a few people. Not so much the fact that Fiji won, but the fact that Fiji won by 24 points. That is a huge margin to have up against Australia, who did win the World Sevens Series very recently. So a very good performance for Fiji heading into a final up against the Kiwis. Now we look through at New Zealand's result. In their round of 16, they did come up against Scotland, able to win that game 43 points to 5. So a very good start to their Sevens World Cup as well. Then they moved on to the quarterfinal, and this game was a lot closer, up against Argentina. Narrow victory for the Kiwis, 12 points to 5 in what was a low-scoring thriller. Then the last match that they have played in, it was the semi-final. They did go head-to-head with Ireland, and they also won that game by 7 points, 17 points to 10. So even though New Zealand scored a few more points in their first game than Fiji, at the end of those 3 rounds, they have got themselves a total of 72 points. Then we look at Fiji, and in their 3 games, they have scored 88 points. It's quite a big difference there between the two sides. The more you look at the difference in points, the more you realise that Fiji, they're going to be a very tough side to beat in this final, but New Zealand are going to have to give their absolute all. They've already ended up headbutting a ref in one of their games. It was an accident for Sam Dixon, but he shed some blood in Cape Town, and I think he's going to be willing to bleed again up against the flying Fijians. But looking through at key players, first of all for Fiji, I've noticed this man for the past year. He cannot be taken lightly. In one of the phases in the Australian game, 4 defenders tried to stop him, and he still found the offload to Nathuno on his inside. So that man is Kiminele Rasaku, as one to definitely watch out for in this final. Alongside him, we've seen some very good play from a few of the other very experienced players in the side, such as Jerry Tawai. Nathuno's been looking pretty strong. A few other players in that Fijian side could be dangerous, but I think Mothanotangi, out of all of the players, is the one that I'm thinking in my head who will be able to have a big game, mainly because he's got that size. New Zealand don't have really anyone who does have that same frame as Mothanotangi. They've got Dixon, who's a relatively big guy, but Mothanotangi, he's built strong, he's got pace, and he's got an offload game that makes him incredibly hard to shut down. So those are the 2 Fijians that I feel will do well throughout this match. Now we look through at New Zealand. First name that comes to mind, now Rohi Magavi-Black. He was sensational in their last match up against the Irish. I feel if he didn't play the way that he did, Ireland would have beaten New Zealand. So it was very important that he stepped up at the right time, and he was certainly able to do just that. He played brilliantly. He had line breaks, he had precise passing, and was able to help set up his Kiwi teammates. Then the next name for New Zealand, it's a bit harder to decide just because we saw so much of Magavi-Black in the last match. But I will go with Amanaki Nicole as the other man who I think will be crucial, mainly because he has got that strength. He's got quite a bit of size to him, not quite the size of someone like a Joshua Vakunara-Billy, but still a relatively solid individual who has broken quite a few tackles throughout the Rugby Sevens World Cup. So I think he is also a player to watch out for in the head-to-heads. But nonetheless, now we are up to that all-important stage of predicting the score. Now, I haven't got one of these right ever, I don't think. I've been close. I probably have about a 5% success rate. So I guess take this prediction as only a rough estimate as who is going to win. I think Fiji, with the form that I mentioned, 88 points across 3 games. How do you stop the flying Fijians? New Zealand, they're going to try, but I don't know whether or not they can do so. They're defending champs of the World Cup though, and they've won it the last 2 times. And a few of those guys in the New Zealand camp were actually there for the 2017 World Cup win. I'm still going Fiji though, and I'm actually going to say Fiji by 10 in this match. I'm going a little bit more in favour of the Fijians, as I think if they can find their momentum early, New Zealand just may not be able to stop them. We saw that Ireland push New Zealand. We saw Argentina push New Zealand. I think if they head out there up against Fiji, and because it's still dry, that is a massive factor for the Fijians. Last night it was wet. Everyone was dropping the ball for all sides across the board. But the tongue again. Whereas Fiji now with the dry conditions, I think they can be absolutely lethal. And I hope that they do end up playing very well indeed. But nonetheless, thank you all very much for tuning in. We will be live on the channel doing our watch-along commentary for the fixture. Do let me know your score predictions also in the comments down below. But thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you all for the next one.